That would be the maximum hours that we can rent the crane. Solving for x, we can first subtract 750 from both sides of the equation. 250x would come down. Subtracting 2500 minus 750. Dropping the 0 down. 0 minus 5, we'll have to borrow from the neighbor. Bringing the 1 over. 10 minus 5 would be 5. And again, we cannot subtract 4 minus 7. So borrowing from the 2, we can subtract 14 minus 7, which would be 7. And bringing the 1 down would be 1750. Solving for x, we can divide by 250. And x would equal 1750 divided by 250. If you want to, you can divide by 10 or cross off the zeros. So we'll have 175 divided by 25. And 25 goes into 175 7 times. So the correct answer would be C, 7 or 7.0, which would be the maximum number of hours. Anything above 7 would have the price over 2,500. To solve the inequality, x minus 5 is greater than 14. To get rid of the minus 5 by the x, we can add 5 on both sides. So we'll have x. Whenever we add or subtract, the inequality would stay the same. And 14 plus 5 would be 19. So the answer x is greater than 19. The correct answer would be B. For the sides of the triangle, and the perimeter is 56. If you remember, the perimeter is the sum of all the sides, or adding all these sides together. So the first side is length y, adding to that the second side, y plus 1, and adding to that the final side, 7, equals. The perimeter again is the total sum of all sides, which would be 56. Question is solving for y. We can combine like terms. Y plus y would be 2y, and 1 plus 7 would be plus 8, equals 56. Continuing to solve for y, we can subtract 8 on both sides. 2y equals 56 minus 8 would be 48. And last step, dividing by 2. Y is equal to 48 divided by 2, which would be 24. Correct answer, A. To solve this word problem, we can write several equations. The first sentence, Beth is 2 years older than Julio. The word is would mean equals to. If we use Beth, the variable b, is, again, is equal to 2 years older than Julio. 2 years older would be adding 2. So Julio will add 2, and that will be the same as Beth. The second sentence, Harold is twice as old as Beth. So if Harold will put a G, is again is equal, twice as old as Beth. Twice as old would be 2 times B or 2 times Beth. The next sentence, Deborah is twice as old as Harold. Deborah again is a D. Twice as old would be 2 times G. And the last sentence, the sum of their ages is 38. So taking each person, which is Beth, plus Julio, plus Harold, plus Deborah, the 4 people, the sum, would add up to 38. Solving from here, To solve for Beth, we want all Beths to be added together. So the first b we can bring down. Instead of a j though, looking at the original equation, b equals j plus 2. If we subtract 2 on both sides, we can have a different equation of b minus 2 equals j. So using substitution, instead of j, we can plug in b minus 2. For the g is equal to 2b. So we can plug in 2b and plus d, but instead of d, we can plug in 2g equals 38. Solving this equation again, if we have a single b or just b's, we can solve. The last variable that we have is a g. Looking back at the equations, we also have g is equal to 2b. So 2g, instead of g though, we can plug in 2b, and then we can solve from there. Bringing down the other variables, b minus 2, plus 2b, and plus 2 times 2b equals 38. Now since the single variable is b's, we can combine like terms. 2 times 2b would be 4b. And adding the b's, we'll have 1b plus 1b plus 2b plus 4b. 1 plus 1 plus 2 plus 4 would be 8b. And we do have a number minus 2, which would stay the same. Equals 38. Solving for b or solving for Beth's age, adding 2 to both sides. 8b equals 40. And last step, you can divide by 8. And you'll get the correct answer. B is equal to 5, or Beth's age is 5. Looking back at the answers, the correct answer would be B. To find a counterexample, we want to find a number that does not work for the statement. The statement is all positive integers are divisible by 2 or 3. So to find a counterexample, we want to find the number that is not divisible by 2 or not divisible by 3. Looking at the first answer, letter A, 100. 100 is an even number, so it is divisible by 2. It does not have to be divisible by 3. The word or means one or the other. So since 100 is divisible by 2, A would be incorrect. Letter B, 57. 57 is an odd number, so it is not divisible by 2. To check and see if it's divisible by 3, you can divide it out using long division. 57 divided by 3. 3 goes into 5 one time. 1 times 3 would be 3. Subtracting, we'll have 2. Bringing it down to 7. 3 goes in evenly to 27, which will be 9. Multiplying, we'll have no remainder. So 3 does divide in 19 times. So letter B again does not divide by 2, but since it divides by 3, would be incorrect. Letter C, the number 30. 30 is an even number. So 2 does divide in, 3 also divides in, but since one of the numbers, in this case both the numbers divide, that would be the incorrect answer. By process of elimination, the correct answer has to be D. 2 does not divide into 25 since it's odd, and 3 does not divide into 25. So the counterexample, 25, is neither divisible by 2 or 3, so the counterexample would be 25. Question is, what is the conclusion of the statement in the box? If x squared equals 4, then x equals negative 2 or x equals 2. The word conclusion means your final statement, or in this case the answer. The problem was x squared equals 4. the conclusion was x equals -2 or x equals +2. So the conclusion is the answer that's stated, x equals -2 or x equals +2. If a student is a high school band member, then the student is a good musician. The if-then statements means the first part. If a student is a high school band member, then they have to be a good musician. What that means is all high school band members are good musicians. If you're a band member, then you're a good musician. Looking at the possible answers, letter D would be correct. If you're in the high school band, you're a good musician. So all high school band members are good musicians. Looking at the steps given above, the property that John used in step 2. Step 2 is x plus 2 equals 0 or x plus 3 equals 0. From step 1, John took the two parentheses and split the parentheses up and set each one equal to 0. When you have two parentheses being multiplied together that equals 0, that's the zero product property. One or both numbers have to be 0, so splitting up the equations, you can set both equal to 0. Correct answer would be B. Area of rectangle and parallelograms. A rectangle is a four-sided shape that has right angles or 90-degree angles, and opposite sides are parallel and also the same length or congruent. Parallelograms, the opposite sides are parallel, also the opposite sides are congruent or equal. The formula to find the area of either a rectangle or parallelogram is the base times the height. The base is how long the shape is, and the height is how tall the shape is. Looking at the first shape, which is a rectangle again has four right angles, denoted by the box in each corner, which are 90 degrees. Also, the opposite sides of a rectangle are congruent, and the opposite sides are parallel sides. Using the formula base times height, base is how long the shape would be, which would be 6 inches. The height is how tall the shape is, which is 3 inches. Multiplying 6 times 3 would be 18. For the units of measurement, we have inches times inches. Multiplying inches times inches would be inches squared. So the area of the rectangle would be 18 inches squared. The second shape is a parallelogram. A parallelogram, again, opposite sides are parallel, and also opposite sides are congruent or the same length. The angles for a parallelogram do not have to be 90 degrees. Using the same formula, base times the height. Base, again, is how long the shape is, which would be 20 centimeters, and the height is how tall the shape is from bottom to top in a straight line, which would be 12 centimeters. Multiplying 20 times 12. If you do 2 times 12, that would be 24. And adding the 0 on, 20 times 12 would be 240. cm stands for centimeters. Multiplying centimeters times centimeters, the answer would be 240 centimeters squared. The 15 centimeters in the picture is an extra piece of information that is not necessary to get the answer. And last question for this section. The shape again is a parallelogram shape. Opposite sides again are parallel and opposite sides are congruent. Looking for the base times the height. The base again is how long the shape is along the bottom of the shape. There is no number for the bottom side, but the opposite side is 14, and since it's a parallelogram, the opposite side is also 14. The height, again going from the base, is how tall the shape is from the base to the top of the shape. Going straight up again, the height would be 8. The 10 is not the height since it's a slanted height. We want the height that goes straight up and down, which will be 8. Base times height, or 14 times 18. Multiplying those out, 4 times 8 will be 32. Carry the 3. 8 times 1 plus 3 would be 112. There is no units or measurement for these numbers. If there is no units or measurements, the answer is just a number, which would be 112. A different way to solve the same question, which you can do in geometry, is to rotate the shapes around. If you rotate it, so the 10 is now the base of the parallelogram, the 10 goes straight across. You could also multiply the base 10 times the height. The height again from the base straight up to the top of the opposite side would be the height. In this case, the height is on the outside, shown by a dashed line, which would be 11.2. The base 10 times 11.2 is the same answer as 112. Area of a triangle. The formula for the area of the triangle, similar to a rectangle, is base times height, but we're going to multiply by 1/2, or we can also divide by 2. So the area is 1/2 times base times height. Looking at the first triangle, we have 2 sides given, 3 feet and 10 feet, and the third side is unknown. For the base times the height, the base again is how long the figure is along the bottom of the shape, which would be 10. And the height again must go straight up and down, usually represented by a right angle. So the height would be 3. Multiplying 10 times 3 would be 30. And multiplying by 1/2 is the same as dividing by 2. So 30 divided by 2 would be 15. The units again, FT stand for feet. Feet times feet would be feet squared. So the area of the triangle is 15 feet squared. Second question, and last question for the section. Looking at this triangle, again the formula, it will be the base times the height divided by 2. The base again is how long the shape is along the bottom. For this triangle, 3 represents the left-hand side of the base, and 2 represents the right-hand side of the base. Altogether, the entire base, if you add 3 plus 2, that would be a distance of 5. So the base of the triangle is 5 units. The height again, from the base, the height must go straight up and down, and it's to the very top of the shape. In this case, the height is 4, and the 5 and 4.5 are extra numbers that we won't use for this problem. Multiplying the base 5 times the height 4 would be 20. And since we have a triangle shape divided by 2, so 20 divided by 2 would give us the answer of 10. There is no units listed in the question, so instead of having units, it's just a single number, which is 10. Find the missing value. Looking at the picture shown, there is a parallelogram shape represented by these solid lines where the opposite sides are parallel and congruent. The dashed lines are referenced to other sides. The missing value we're looking for is the variable h. To solve this, we can first find the area of the parallelogram given. The area again is base times height. Base again is how long the shape is along the bottom, which is 0.4. And the height again is the height straight up and down, which in this case is listed on the left-hand side of 0.3. Multiplying the base times the height, 0.4 times 0.3. If you multiply 3 times 4, that would be 12. Each side has one decimal, so there's 2 decimal points together, which means our answer should have 2 decimals, which would be 0.12 or 0.12. So 0.4 times 0.3 will be 0.12. That is the area again for the parallelogram. To solve for h, what we can do is rotate the paper around to find the area using 2 different numbers. If you rotate the shape, so the 0.5 becomes the base, how long it is straight across. H is now the height, how tall the shape is straight up and down. The area is also base times height, or 0.5 times h. The first area we found was 0.12. We can set that to equal to the other area, which again is 0.5 times h. So finding the area 2 different ways for the same shape, you can set those equal to each other and solve for h. To solve for h, you can divide by the number in front, 0.5. The 0.5s will cancel, and we'll have the answer h equals 0.12 divided by 0.5. Dividing decimals, we can use long division. The numerator goes inside the division symbol, 0.12 divided by 0.5. Before we divide decimals, it's a good idea to move the decimal over. So instead of 0.5, it is now 5. And if you move the decimal 1 time, we'll move the second decimal 1 time also. So now we have 1.2 divided by 5. 5 doesn't go into 1, but 5 goes into 12 2 times. 2 times 5 would be 10. Subtracting straight down would be 2. Adding a 0 and bringing the 0 down. 5 into 20 goes 4 times. 4 times 5 would be 20, so there would be no remainder. For the answer, we can bring the decimal straight up, 0.24, or the value of h would be 0.24. Looking back at the diagram, there's no units given in the picture, so there's no units on the answer. Area of trapezoids. A trapezoid is a shape where one pair of sides is opposite and parallel, and the other 2 sides are not parallel. The trapezoid has 2 bases, base 1 and base 2, and also has a height, which is the distance straight up and down between the bases. The formula for the area of a trapezoid: 1/2 times the height times the sum of base 1 plus base 2. So adding the 2 bases together, multiplying by the height, and then dividing by 2 will give you the area of a trapezoid. First question, and first trapezoid. Looking at the trapezoid, we have 2 bases, 7 inches along the bottom, and 3 inches is the top base. The height again is 4 inches, goes straight up and down. To find the area of the trapezoid, we can first add the 2 bases together. In this case, 7 plus 3 would be 10. and we can multiply by the height, which would be 4. 10 times 4 would be 40. And the last part of the formula, 1/2, or you can also divide by 2. 40 divided by 2 would be 20. Looking back at the trapezoid, the length is inches. Multiplying the 10 inches times the 4 inches, inches times inches, would be inches squared. So the area of the first trapezoid is 20 inches squared. And second question, last question for this section. This trapezoid is turned sideways. If you did rotate your paper, it would look like the other trapezoids that we solved. The bases, again, are the parallel sides, so they're opposite of each other. In this case, 18 and 6. Adding the two bases together, 18 plus 6, will be 24. And from the formula, after you add the two bases, we can multiply by the height. The distance between the bases, in this case, is 9. Multiplying 24 times 9. 4 times 9 would be 36, carrying the 3. 9 times 2 would be 18, plus 3 more would be 21. 216 is the bases added, multiplied by the height. The last part of the formula is 1/2, or divide by 2. 216 divided by 2. If you take half of 200, that would be 100, and half of 16 would be 8. So 216 divided by 2 would be 108. Looking back at the diagram, the distances are feet. We multiplied 24 feet times 9 feet, so the area 108 feet squared. Find the area of a trapezoid with bases 12 centimeters and 18 centimeters and height of 10 centimeters. If you want to draw a picture for this, you can first draw a trapezoid. The bases, 12 centimeters and 18 centimeters, you can place on either base. And the height of 10 centimeters, again, is the distance from one base to the other base, which would be 10 centimeters. Solving from here, the formula again, you can first add the two bases together. 12 plus 18 would be 30. And multiplying by the height, which is 10, would give us 300. And the last part for trapezoids, after you add the bases and multiply by the height, multiply by 1/2, which is the same as dividing by 2. 300 divided by 2 would be 150. The units again for the problem are centimeters. Multiplying centimeters times centimeters would be centimeters squared. So the area of the trapezoid, 150 centimeters squared. Title of the last section is called Pythagorean Theorem. The equation for Pythagorean theorem is a squared plus b squared equals c squared. To use this formula, we can use it when we have a triangle with a right angle or 90-degree angle. The two letters A and B will be the two short sides of the triangle that are touching the right angle. And letter C is the longest side, also called the hypotenuse of the right triangle, that is across from the right angle. When you have a right triangle with a 90-degree angle, if you square A squared, and you square B, which is B